50% of the internet goes down and almost 85% of crypto projects go down. When AWS goes down, we have a big, big fucking problem.
Welcome to XXIM podcast, where we dive into the cutting edge ideas on decentralization, blockchain, and the new monetary systems. In this episode, Ankit sat down with Daniel, CEO of Influx Technologies, to discuss Kaspa community's initiative to get to 1,000 nodes.
I love the initiative that the community has. They're highly involved, they're highly coordinated. And I like Kaspa as a project. I hold Kaspa personally.
This episode is the story of decentralization. As centralized cloud providers fail, who will build the future of Web3?
The biggest weakness of any blockchain at this particular point in time is where their nodes are housed and how they move the chains forward.
And lastly, Daniel's pledge to the community.
I'm going to get them to their 1,000 nodes one way or the other, whether I deploy them or whether they're deployed through the community.
Today, I'm here with Daniel, CEO of Influx Technology, the company behind the Flux network. Welcome, Daniel.
Hey, thank you for having me today, man. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for working around my crazy schedule.
No problem, man. Good to meet you and great to have you on XXIM podcast. Daniel, from me, Flux is one of the oldest and most mature DePIN project. But today, though, I wanted to focus on Flux's recent announcement of easy-to-deploy Kaspa nodes. So let me start by asking a very personal question. As a DePIN leader for the last 8 years, what do you think has changed in crypto in the last 8 years?
Oh, that's a great question. I think everything has changed. The paradigm has changed probably 100 times, from the point where, 2009 till today. I think the big thing is we're finally at the part of our growth maturity model that we'll be able to start seeing, real viable products, real viable projects. And you're going to see these projects that are fluff projects that, I always tell people, if you don't see their product, you're their product, right? So project like Flux are imperative because, they're actually, there's a revenue generation model. The company itself, Influx, who builds on top of it, really helps it. So I think the biggest change has been the maturity of the space. So we went from kind of the wild west, it's a free for all, to there's more structure to it now. Even though it looks a bit chaotic at times, disruptive technology is chaotic. That's just the way it is. You just got to be super comfortable with the unknown, and you have to be able to think on your feet very quickly.
100%. What about the revenue model? Like, you think it is also because we're starting to see companies like Flux that actually generating revenue, which wasn't the case in the past, right? Even 2017, 2018, we didn't see many companies. And only after perhaps the DeFi summer, we started to see a lot of that in 2021.
Yeah, I would say probably 98% of crypto projects out there now have no revenue generation or way to make money. So, I think we're leaving that speculative market where you got a white paper and a dream and you're going to build something, and the community is all excited they get in early. But retail fatigue is real. Like, after the meme coin debacle, and then, then you've got NFTs, then you've got DeFi, then you've got, whatever the acronym du jour is, right? The retail fatigue is real. But what happened is, every time it burns out, we add a different quality of investor, right? So people that stay for the long period of time, they're going to see these ebbs and flows of the market. And they're going to start to realize and identify projects correctly that actually can generate revenue, that can solve a solution that isn't already solved or is fractured in legacy technology, Web 2, and they're doing it in Web 3. I think that's going to be the holy grail right there. And so do I think in the future, because now you got people like Brian Armstrong talking about doing tokenization from institution. There's all kinds of shit that's coming where
T0, I don't know if you've seen T0.
Mm-hmm. T0 has been around forever.
Yes, under Overstock, but I think they are looking to go public next year.
Yeah, and it's weird because I met with those guys up in New York. I guess it was 5 or 6 years ago when we were talking about things, and again, not ready. It was half baked. There was a bunch of variables there, stuff that you just can't really trust. But I think the projects that are actually building a use case and really incentivizing the community, not just with mining rewards or running the infrastructure, but also we're doing that with our progressive node rewards. So we're actually using the money that's coming in to also incentivize folks to deploy. So it comes down to there'll be a few companies that will be the bridge for the major players. And Flux, I believe, is one of them because we've laid that foundational groundwork, whether it's front ends, back ends, game servers, you name it, AI, or we have a decentralized AI component. We have Edge, which is our GPU market, yada, yada, yada. So I think the ones that are going to make money in the long term are the ones that are going to be super successful.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And how do you see RWA itself, right? DePIN, RWA, it's sort of the definition itself has changed, right? I think 7 years ago, 8 years ago, it was physical, like it used to be infrastructure based, but now I think RWA is like a mostly financial assets that we're looking at, right? So have you seen the shift? What do you think of the shift that has happened?
Yeah, well, I think you're definitely going to see our RWAs happen, but I don't think it's going to happen like everybody anticipates them to do. That it's going to be some decentralized process. I think you're going to get the JP Morgans and the ilks of the big players to start to tokenize those assets early on. So, it kind of takes the power out of the hands of the people. Where I see RWAs really come in on strong is for something like what we did with Sal watches. So we actually created a watch that was linked to an NFT and embedded in that watch. So what we're trying to do is take away the counterfeiting piece because 80% of
Physical
Rolex.
watch. Physical watch.
Yep. So think of it this way. If you have the watch and you have the NFT, you own the watch. If you have the watch and you don't have the NFT, it's probably stolen or lost or something of that nature. So really, it creates two new markets for watches, the ones that are verified and the ones that are unverified. And obviously, as the verified ones come into play, and you get somebody like a Rolex to utilize the technology that was built, now the value of these watches goes parabolic. And RWAs work really well for that.
Oh, you're right. You got some coffee there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Caffeine, nicotine, and crypto, the best thing for breakfast.
But yes, but you're right. You're right. I think VeChain has also been working in that area, right? To I think sort of systemize RWA for some time. I don't know if you've spent time with looking at VeChain, but I know they are one of the early projects.
Yeah, and VeChain is a perfect example of a project that began speculatory and started building toward actual products. But like that ability to like launch a project with no, MVP, minimal viable project in the backside of it is gone. I listen to probably 10 pitches a week. Almost all of them are still exclusively, hey, I have this white paper, this idea, and I want to raise, $20 million. It's like, that's not going to happen, homie. It really doesn't happen in conventional finance. It sure as hell is not going to happen. You look back to the last time that really happened where people started throwing money at projects. That's the SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried purchasing. He was buying every project that wasn't tied down for a while. He didn't care if it was going to be successful or not. He just wanted to basically launder his money through those companies. So,
oh yeah, this is 2021, 2022, the peak of SBF, right?
That's when we met with them. Alameda Ventures, Alameda Ventures and SBF, and we had a call with them. And at the end of the call, I got off and I looked at the guys and I was like, yeah, there's something definitely wrong here. We're staying the hell away from this as far as we can get.
I wanted to congratulate you guys. Like you've just had the biggest network soft fork. You have been using proof of useful work, and now you've got a version 2 running. So congratulations, happened over the weekend.
Yeah, so we had a 50-50 network split. So we had consensus consensus validation and a transactional validation on the proof of work blockchain, and then we had a layer 2, which is our proof of use of work model, which is our node structure. We said very early on, eventually we would be completely proof of useful work, because you can't have 50% of your network that doesn't provide useful work if you're calling yourself proof of useful work, right? If it's just transactional validation and network consensus, it doesn't make sense to have that on. So our fork essentially took the entire project to proof of use work. And I mean, in my book, Satoshi Nakamoto's greatest quandary was, what do I do with all my additional compute resources, right? He knew this would grow fast. And like everything else, you have to iterate. And I'm not saying Flux is Bitcoin. I'm saying Flux is Flux, right? We don't need to we had a fair launch, completely proof of work. We ran that for 5 years, moved to a hybrid model where we had 50% in our useful work and 50% in proof of work. And then now we've moved to 100% proof of useful work. And in the end, it benefits everyone, because now those all compute resources on the network are available for rent, for purchasing, for people to supply compute resources and get incentivized at a much higher rate than just mining. People kind of busted on me for oh, you betrayed proof of work and you went away from it. And I don't see that at all. I see it as we're trying to help proof of work, because there needs to be a better way than what we have now, because proof of work is dying a slow death. The only way to save that is to add revenue cycles to the miners, because they're business operators. So if you utilize Flux Core and you mine whatever project you want to mine, let's say it's Telesta or another project, you want to mine that. If you're using Flux Core, you're available for use of work. So say a rendering job comes in or an AI job comes in, your compute can be switched, do this job over here, get paid at a much higher incentive, and then come back again. And not only that, we're not charging people for software. We're paying you to do it. So, the Hive OSs of the world, they're charging you per rig. We're not doing that. We're actually paying you per rig that you deploy, and you're getting part of the block reward from Flux, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. Our motto is, Google's motto for many years was "Don't be evil," and they actually put it was on their search engine, it was in their code base, it was everywhere you found it. Don't be evil, and that's been completely scrubbed. Why? Well, I'll let you use your imagination on why. Flux's motto is "Don't be evil again." So the way that we built Flux from the ground up is we never wanted to be in a position where we had to make decisions for the infrastructure. That is all done by the community. You have the recent events with KDA where you had the founders leave, and now they're getting delisted and stuff like that. That would never happen for us. You know what I mean? Because we've built it so that if Dan gets hit by a bus, the project just keeps going, because the internal people who are running the project are the ones that are incentivized for doing so, which means after Dan, there's still an incentivization to continue to keep doing what you're doing. So we wanted to build this not for now, not for 10 years from now. We wanted to build this for 100 years from now. And I'm sure technology is obviously going to iterate in between that, and it needs to be flexible. But when a community controls the direction of the project, that's the best thing.
100%. I guess that leads right into my next question, which is, do you still believe in 2025 decentralization is important? Like in this era of meme coins, right? Do you still think people care about decentralization?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And I would say you're always going to have the fluff and the frothiness, almost like that FOMO piece that comes with any asset. But we're building a more mature and educated. I mean, imagine the stock market 10 years after it launched. I mean, you had people that were trained to, they built their careers and their models around that. Average investor, how do I get into this? So to me, like we're so early on that we're just still educating our base level investors. So, you have the adoption bell curve. It starts down here. So these are the early folks. These are the, the brains of the bunch. And then you have this investment model where people, you get the early adopters, you get the regular run in, and then you'll get like the holdouts and the short termers and the hardheads over here. We're like over here. Like we haven't even looked at the bell yet. We're like over here. And I think that's what people need to understand. I mean, we're talking trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars are going to inflow into these projects. And if you don't think that's the truth, the majority of investors are sitting in cash positions right now. Warren Buffett holds more cash than damn near several countries. So, and if you think that's just chilling there, you've got another thing coming. When I say we've been retail to this point, retail maybe short, small term enterprise, and now we're talking about financial institutions. So, you're going to want people that have this exposure in their portfolio, and they're not going to only want a Bitcoin. They're going to want new emerging technology that's changing the paramount. So, I mean, AWS did us the best advertisement in the world the past several weeks. I mean, like, we've had more people show up on our doorstep looking to load balance between Web3 and Web2 and we're talking like major companies. We're talking like Fortune 100 companies that are coming, they've kicked the tires for 2 years. And, and I always tell them, I said, look, there's two ways of adoption. There's attrition, which means you naturally grow into it. You just keep growing, and eventually you just reach that pinnacle and everything just takes off. Or there's necessity, and we're in necessity right now. I mean, if 50% of the internet goes down and almost 85% of crypto projects go down, when AWS goes down, we have a big, big fucking problem. And decentralization solves that. So I don't even think we're in a position where decentralization is even like a want. I think it's a necessity. I think, why is it different than what I'm already using that makes me be down? Why is yours different? So yeah, in the end, I think it's the best thing that could have happened to all of crypto. So yes, decentralization is still paramount in my book.
That's beautiful. And I did see a lot of blockchains, including Base. I saw Base went down that time, which was weird for me.
Yeah, well, Brian Armstrong's an idiot. So we offered to help them out 3 years ago. They went out and bought a company called Buffalo Trails, I believe it was, and brought it inside. They were going to be the next AWS for crypto. I met with them up in New York, and I said, hey, your idea is, interesting, but it ain't going to work. And this is why. And they basically dismissed me. And I was like, okay, that's fine. We'll see you when you need us. I mean, you do the damage to your project. You go run around and telling everybody you're decentralized, and then AWS goes down and your project goes down. Good. You're the victim of your own monster, right? Somebody like Base should know better. If you're pushing disruptive technology and you're still like living in the legacy world, the one thing I'll give Binance, you may not like Binance, but they do, we've talked to them before about doing stuff with those guys. They're willing to take the risk on their side to practice what they preach. Coinbase is not. They're essentially turning it into, legacy 2.0 is what it is. And they're not you could even say Web 2.5. They want to be somewhere in the middle between having a foot in both sectors. And if, to me, that's like selling the competition. That's like literally selling the competition. They're selling the people that they should be competing with, which makes no sense.
That's, heartbreaking. So, recently you guys gave a huge shout out to Kaspa community for prioritizing decentralization. So I wanted to ask you, why do you think it's important for people to run their own nodes? It's important for us. We care about decentralization, but I wanted to hear from you why it's important for people to run their own nodes.
Well, I think proof of work is only one side of it, right? What makes Bitcoin great is anyone can run a node. Now, the difference is that, smaller projects don't necessarily have the resources, or the people that are supporting the project have the resources. So our initiative is, we liked what Kaspa was doing. I like Kaspa as a project. I hold Kaspa personally. I think it's a pretty solid asset. And, I've made no qualms about it. There's things I don't like about it, but that's okay. I don't have to like everything. I'm not in their project. I'm in our project. However, I love the initiative that the community has. They're highly involved. They're highly coordinated. And one of the things that we said is, hey, how can we help these folks make their chain even more decentralized? After the shit show that was AWS going down, right? the importance of nodes not ran on centralized infrastructure becomes paramount, right? So I would say the biggest weakness of any blockchain at this particular point in time is where their nodes are housed and how they move the chains forward. So if proof of work is rock solid, no issues there. But if your node network is having challenges, then you have issues there. So one of our teammates, Lucas, came to me and he says, "Hey, we want to do an initiative with Kaspa, and we want to work with their community, work with their, I believe it's the foundation they worked with, and we're going to push Kaspa nodes on Flux." Now, this isn't the first time we've done this, but this is the first time we've coordinated it and actually brought that value to the company or to the project. We did this with KDA very, very early on. As a matter of fact, it was one of the first use cases we ever deployed on Flux was their chain web data. And they came to us with a very significant problem, and that is that their nodes were being attacked. So your nodes are an important part of the project. And what happened was they would DOS these nodes, they would go offline, and now they were just picking and choosing nodes, and they would DOS the shit out of them. They'd go down. So what Flux did is we came in and deployed 1,000 nodes in 30 minutes. So but the thing about those 1,000 nodes is if you hit one, another one will immediately appear. So there's no way to truly DOS those nodes to the point where they're all down, because Flux is already working on moving it to, this one goes down, no problem. They got two more over here, so the use case was proven with that. They were able to eventually fix their nodes so they wouldn't be DOSed, and we kept running infrastructure on Flux. We believe Kaspa can benefit from that as well, because the more decentralized you are, the better off you are in the long term.
So one thing you said just before, there are certain parts of Kaspa you don't like.
I'm not getting into that, man. I don't want the Kaspa wrath.
No, I think from my perspective, it's important for people to understand there are things that perhaps, perceived from the outside world, right? Not within the community, and it's fair to get the criticism if they are a criticism, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very verbal about what my concerns were, mostly around the origin of the chain, their data nodes that they had, the fact part of the beginning part of the chain was inaccessible. They said, yeah, because you got this chain bloat and things like that. So, I mean, do I care about that? No, it's disruptive technology. Everybody goes through these iteration cycles. And they've become much more concentrated on decentralized recently. And folks like Wolfie, who is a good friend of mine, he knows I'm very transparent with what my concerns are. And I don't know that there's ever been a concern that they haven't addressed in some way, shape, or form. So transparency was a big piece at the beginning. We got that clarity. The archival node structure, we got some clarity around that. Hey, we'll have to put these nodes back together, yada yada yada. So in the end, I feel pretty confident in them as a project. I wouldn't tell do your own research. I'm not telling you to buy Kaspa by any stretch of the imagination, because nobody wants to listen to me for investment advice. But I do like what they're doing with decentralization, and that's what drew our community toward Kaspa. And very early on, we were right there lockstep with Kaspa while they launched. So, we like to see projects that are thinking ahead like that.
Yeah. And you guys launched, initially Flux integrated with Kaspa back in 2022, right? So that's the first time. So this new recent announcement isn't about the integration. It's about making integration easier, right, for everyone to deploy.
Bingo.
Oh no, it's right.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to use case for Kaspa long term, I mean, there's a lot of talk about how they could, slide into the DePIN world at some point. I think they're gonna do it in tandem with other projects like Flux. So, utilization of their network is, to me, it's one of the only proof of work projects out now that I believe, is preaching or doing what they're preaching.
Yeah.
There's a few of them out there that I like. There's more smaller projects that, they have goals that they want to do long term and stuff like that. But established projects, you got Kaspa. I mean, it really was what it comes down to.
Yeah. I think BlockDAG and now DAG Knight and VProx. I think there are a lot of very interesting work that's been already done. But yeah, the stuff that's actually coming up is actually even more exciting. Now, again, none of this is financial advice. We talk technology, we talk blockchain, we talk DLT. No financial advice here at XXIM. So you guys announced this sort of integration on the 15th of October, right? So it's been sort of 2 weeks now. What sort of results you have seen? I think there was a tweet you guys put out there. So what sort of uptick you've seen so far from the Kaspa community?
I think we're well over 500 nodes right now. I think their target goal was 1,000. I agreed to deploy whatever their shortfall was. So I'm going to get them to 1,000 some way, shape, or form. So we'll deploy it on our. I'll deploy it on our network, whatever the shortfall is, because I believe in what Kaspa's doing. So I kind of practice what I preach. If I'm going to tell other people to do it, I'm going to do it myself. So I would like to see them be like 700 natural nodes, and then I'll finish in the other 300.
Beautiful.
But I'm okay either way, you know what I mean? Like, because I think the initiative is a really good one.
Yeah. So I think I saw the numbers, right? Like initially it was around 380, 390 before this announcement.
I think that's what we've added is around 500. So they're probably up higher than that. As of yesterday, I believe it was over 500. So
these
don't quote me.
No, these are not. I thought 500 is the total public nodes, including Flux. So that was the 170.
Well, maybe it is.
I think
maybe it is.
Yeah. So that's the 170 Flux has added since 15th of October, and the rest is the Kaspa nodes that were running before, public nodes, obviously. This is the tweet I saw. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone. So I think that's very. I mean, I'm quite happy with the results so far. Of course, I think everyone should get behind it if you have the capacity. And it's $27 a month, right?
Yeah, and if you do that on AWS, you'd get one node for about 130. So you get 3 nodes with Flux for $27. So anybody that deploys. So, and now keep in mind, I believe those numbers that you have are instances and not deployments. So every deployment carries 3 nodes with it. So I'm thinking that may be the deployment number, not the actual node count. So yeah, I mean, I think it's been unbelievably successful. You know what I mean? I get people reaching out to me every day saying, "Hey, this was a great initiative. Thank you for helping with it." I mean, I'm super happy with it.
As you said, that you are going to donate whatever is needed to reach 1,000 public nodes milestone. What is the pledge here?
The pledge is this: I'm going to get them to their 1,000 nodes, one way or the other, whether I deploy them or whether they're deployed through the community. So obviously the first line of defense and the first way you want to go is with the community. But when I deploy them, I don't control them anyway. They all just go into the ethos and run for a year, and that's the end of it. So obviously committed people that are committed to it, and you don't need to use Flux. You can deploy it on your own computer at home if you'd like, as long as it meets the criteria. Run a node at the house. I've did that. My Bitcoin node's been online since 2010. You know what I mean? Like it's update it and update the hardware and stuff like that. But I run it. I've run it for forever. Hell, I ran Flux nodes. You know what I mean? In the early days, deployed them all across the globe. Don't need to do that now because we're in 78 countries across the globe, so that helps a little bit. And then a lot of people do it. So no, but I think it really gets down to grassroots, man. Is what we've lost our way with our community models. It's been about the price. I mean, you go into any Discord right now, it's all number go down. Everybody's pissed. Whatever. Like I think we've lost our way with the community because Flux, and I can only speak for what my community does. Is they're the most vibrant in bear markets. You know what I mean? They wake up when the price is down and they start working with us. I mean, hell, go to our Discord and look at our chat. I mean, everybody's there every day. They're showing up. They believe in the project. And us as founders have not done a good job of making the community feel involved and be part of their. My goal was with Flux was to give it to the community. I think we've done it. I think boomers especially have done a great disservice to the next generation. And of course, Gen X is on the line too, because we're going to hand this world off to our kids for the very first time in worse shape than we got it. And, they're talking censorship, they're talking privacy challenges, they're talking, moderation. You got people going to jail in the UK for posting memes. Fuck that. There has to be a better way. And Web 3 ushers that in because you're not relying on those centralized entities to control it. The UK wants to ban peer-to-peer messaging. Well, good fucking luck. Good luck with that. You're not going to do it. It ain't going to happen, right? So we know it, and if you took Dan to jail because it's running on Flux, it isn't going to matter anyway because I'm not the one that gave permission to it. It's a permissionless network. So they're going to have to figure it out the hard way. But I think we're definitely starting to see that tide change.
Yeah, the tide is definitely changing. But yeah, amazing initiative by yourself, by Flux. And, it's an epic pledge, right? For me, I think Kaspa community has to get behind it.
I don't make a damn penny on any of this shit, man. Like, I'm doing it because I believe in it. You know what I mean? Like, I believe in the project. And I think that if you believe in something, you put your time, talent, and finances behind it. You know what I mean? And that's where I think it really comes down to. But, people are so jaded, from this whole hype cycles that have happened that I believe this next, I look differently. I don't think the bull market is a conventional bull market. I think you're going to see, BTC essentially move, and I think you'll see the alts that have actual use cases start to follow those pieces in tandem. So, and I can tell you right now, I get emails daily from exchanges that want to know what's been done on your project, from investors, from people that want to know what's happening. And I think we're building a new class of educated investors. I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Again, thank you from my side, but also behalf of Kaspa community for your generosity to get us to the 1,000 nodes, which is, I think, amazing. I think it'll be a great milestone for Kaspa. And I do want to talk about another big milestone, what that looks like, but perhaps later on. I do want to spend now 10-ish minutes, if we can, on the Flux's technology and the Flux infrastructure. And I was very curious to find out how many nodes actually running worldwide on Flux, right? And how many Bitcoin nodes? Because I know how many overall nodes are running on Bitcoin, but I don't know how many of them are hosted on, Flux.
Well, that's a bit of a tricky situation. We just went through a fork. So we're working through the ebbs and flows, but around 10,000 nodes approximately, and they're in 78 countries around the world. We are, by all definitions, the largest decentralized compute network in existence. So, which is nice, and it's a nice little claim to fame. And whenever I go in and present to somebody, it's kind of nice to show them that. But the big part is we run not only the nodes that are the Flux nodes, which is now our network and consensus validation. It's also our our layer 2, our node infrastructure. Is saturated now. It's 100% of the network. So really what we're trying to do is provide services to the people that absolutely need them. And we're not talking top enterprises because, folks like Elon, he'll just go buy whatever he needs, right? But the reality of it is, 99.9% of us can't afford to do the same thing. And I believe we're in a digital gold rush right now. I believe cloud infrastructure and compute organically, holistically, right, is going to be a finite resource. So, I think we're positioning ourselves quite nicely because you don't necessarily, if you go to the Flux marketplace, you're not going to only utilize the Flux marketplace. You can deploy on Akash, you can deploy on other networks. We're offering that centralized location with the marketplace that people can meet on a decentralized infrastructure.
It's beautiful.
So really, any project that wants to, I mean, we've had discussions with Salad, we've had discussions with IONet, we've had discussions with other folks on how we could all work together to bring that into one centralized portal that is based off of and built on a decentralized backbone. People say all the time, they're like, well, it seems like this is a bit of a bubble with AI, that maybe there's not as and it isn't a bubble. We're in the beginning phases of like a technology shift. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. You look at 2027, it doesn't look like now at all. You know what I mean? Like this is going to change immensely. And I'm not just talking, cloud infrastructure. I'm talking the financial system's going to look different. It's going to be a different look in 2027. So I think we've done a real good job of laying that foundational groundwork to help pivot that stuff uh, to those players that are entering the space. So yeah, I mean, it comes down to this: is when somebody asks you what's blockchain do, instead of trying to fabricate some bullshit idea, you just say, take a look at Flux. This is what blockchain does. We don't even use the word crypto. I would say that the majority of our projects, when we're talking to them about that, they know there is Flux, the asset, but to them, it's just another service. And like that's how we wanted to build Flux. Like my wife goes to the ATM, she puts the card in, she puts her PIN in, she takes her cash, she takes a receipt, her card, she drives off. She gives two shits about all the infrastructure that was working behind the scenes to bring that to her. And essentially, I believe Web3 and DePIN is successful when it looks and it feels, and the user interface, the UI UX is built like Web 2. And that's what we did is we built the interface. And if you've deployed a Kaspa node there, it's a couple clicks, literally a couple clicks. Hey, you want to pay in fiat? No problem. We'll do that for you too. PayPal, Stripe. We're adding 2 more payment on ramps. And all of that you're spending then gets settled to Flux and goes back into the ecosystem. So truly a utility asset in every sense of the word.
Yeah. Can people pay using Kaspa?
It was requested and we're adding it. So we are going to add that. I think, it's one of those things that's like, I mean, there are payment rails that you could use multiple crypto with, but we want to make sure we make it, we're not taxing our users for doing it, because these payment rails are like 6% in some cases, 7%. It's fucking ridiculous. Nobody wants to pay that. So, our goal was to integrate the native Kaspa app, so it's a 1-to-1. So if, we're not charging a fee, you're paying for in Kaspa. If you pay in Flux today, you get like a 10% reduction. I could see the same thing with Kaspa. We'll do a 10% reduction if it's paid in Kaspa.
Yeah, I see. So native Kaspa will make sense, but not through the payment rails, because they are just too.
No, I mean, it would be easy to do it that way. We could turn that on today, but the problem is now there's a gatekeeper in between, the deployer and the application, and that's not a way I really want to do it. I mean, for business sense, you have to be like, a company has to be able to budget in fiat. That's just the way it is. I can't say, hey, I'm going to need 20,000 Flux, or nope, price is up, I'm going to need less. Oh, wait, it's up. Now it's down, I'm going to need 40,000, right? There's this variable window that just kind of goes back and forth with speculatory assets. Eventually that'll stabilize, someday. And it won't be a big deal. But for us, it makes more sense to allow people to say, I'm going to need $10,000 for this deployment. And that's what they spend for said deployment. So, for enterprise adoption, it's paramount. I can't do a budget and speculate, hey, I want to use Web3 and it could be anything between $20,000 and $100,000. That's not how it works in the world.
No. And, it's true for every business. If you're running a real business, I think it's true. You want your cost to be fixed costs, not variable cost. But that's great. Quickly, I wanted you to explain, how does proof of useful work? Because I think, it's been around for a long time. Of course, you guys have been using it since perhaps early days, right? But it's not a common term in the industry. Not a lot of people that get behind even, proof of work really understand how it works, and how to make proof of work useful. So perhaps the question is, how you guys are making, or Flux is making it useful?
Yeah, and that's an amazing question too. And it really does fix a lot of problems we have in blockchain nowadays, because we have these compute resources that are sitting idle. I mean, NVIDIA's popping a card every 6 months to a year now, and then everybody clamors for the next card. Our goal was to utilize the current compute resources that are in the world and a run till death model. And instead of having the new greatest and latest thing, you have volume. So for instance, I need an H100. Well, if you're going to run an H100, it's going to be X amount. H200 is going to be this amount, and it is what it is. And good luck trying to get them. I mean, there are some out there now. I think Akash is pretty heavy into the A100, A200 game. But for us, we shard that between all of the infrastructure that runs on the network. So if you're doing a rendering job, it's sharded across the network. So instead of one H100 or H200, you may have a 4060 Ti, 4060 Ti's that's doing that work, because most people don't need these high-end graphics cards to just do rendering, and even AI doesn't need that high of a graphics card if you have a cluster. So what we try to do is take those throwaway compute resources and we try to put them to use. We try to target infrastructure that makes sense, that grows with us organically, and it just works out that way. I'll give you a perfect, for instance, when COVID hit, one of our very first use cases was everybody was scrambling, and Folding at Home started mapping the protein model for COVID. Okay. So I go to the team and I said, guys, let's do folding. Let's just deploy it and run it on everything, right? Just for shits and giggles. And at this point, we had let's say 3,000 nodes. We went from not even in the list in the top 100 over the course of the next 2 weeks because we just deployed the network and we just smashed the shit out of it. So this is examples where volume, the number of cards, the number of infrastructure you have on the network exceeds specialty. So, and people that have been in the space long enough to know you can do it with a GPU, you can do it with an FPGA, you can do it with an ASIC, right? ASICs are single use, really focused on one thing. FPGAs with their data streams and all that kind of shit, pain in the ass, but you can do it. And then you got your GPU. So what we're doing is we're harnessing that entire network, and it doesn't matter what you mine. So if you want to if you're a spec miner and you want to mine new projects, no problem. You just deploy it in Score, and we can utilize your infrastructure. Think of it this way: right now, AWS has data centers all across, and we know we just got to witness what happens in the northeast when it goes down, right? And they have these data centers. They have the cost of upkeep. They have the employees that work there. They have the electric. They have the infrastructure to maintain. They have all these components, highly centralized. Flux takes that model and smashes it into the wind and says, you don't need to have power because it's decentralized. You don't need to have infrastructure because it's decentralized. You don't have to have HVAC and cooling because it's decentralized. Our network runs under my desk. It runs in a data center. It runs in a guy's node. It runs everywhere. So it really takes that concept that Satoshi came out with of being your own bank. Now you're your own data center with Flux. I think that's the best way to explain it.
That's a beautiful, beautiful analogy and a way to explain. Daniel, I want to wrap this up. I have a very interesting and perhaps the most important question for today. I believe Bitcoin has around 23,000 nodes, right? For Kaspa community, in one way or another, it's going to hit 1,000 nodes mark. Do you think it's fair to start dreaming for 10,000 nodes rightly after that?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And I mean, we're taking the time to do the native integration for Kaspa, so that way people can do direct and they don't have to worry about the fees, which is a big deal. And then also, this campaign doesn't end today. No. This campaign keeps going and going and going. This is an ongoing organic growth model. And as Dan's nodes fall off, my goal is to get community members to take those pieces over and make sure that they keep going. So I believe Kaspa could be at 20,000 nodes today if somebody put the resources to it, right? And they just deployed it on Flux. We could easily run 20,000 with never even blink an eye. But in the end, you have to really make this an ongoing community initiative. It can't be a one and done. Hey, we're going to give some Kaspa away. We're trying to get some nodes up. and it's going to be half the amount, in a year what we have now. That doesn't make sense. So really, this is baking this organic growth model into the community model, and really that's what gives it its success, is it's driven from the community and not driven from big financial institutions like a JP Morgan, who owns a shit ton of ETH nodes and can actually censor blocks now. I mean, Infura is owned by JP Morgan, and guess who is the number one provider for infrastructure?
All the RPC,
that's a little scary.
All the RPC nodes are Infura. Yeah.
So I think right there, even at 1,000 nodes, I think it gives it a better decentralized model than what you're getting with ETH.